Fellow Ambazonians, happy Labor Day if you are in the United States of America. You know, there are two things that can make a people miss their destiny. There are some two important things that can make a people fighting for their very existence lose the battle. Number one, ignorance. Number two, the work of dishonest people, bad people, corrupt people, evil people who don't mean well for us. When we are deceived to depend or lean on the wisdom and the directives of evil people, we can lose our destiny. But that they can only succeed when we are ignorant. And that's why I will always come up to shed light on very important, critical issues when they are being discussed. I want us to be able to identify corrupt people, dishonest people when they speak, irrespective of their origins, irrespective of their titles, irrespective of where they work. And let all those people who work for the United Nations and anybody who works for the United Nations, even if he is of Southern Cameroon's extraction, he is not a reliable opinion maker, opinion leader. His opinions are not necessarily good and reliable because they are of Southern Cameroon's origin. Most of the people working for the United Nations, MINUSCA included, these are people who got those jobs by recommendation from the Cameroon government. So they are beneficiaries of the corrupt regime. They put UN in front of their names, but actually they are agents of La République. So don't listen to them. They will try to use their intellectual power to corrupt your minds, to confuse and see if they can discourage you. But this is not 1961, so I have some things to shed light. Number one, we are not against schools reopening. We are not. The Ambazonians, the Southern Cameroonians are not responsible for school closures. We are not. Since 2019, we have made that clear. We are not against schools reopening. Rather, is the state of insecurity perpetuated by who? By La République du Cameroon invading forces. That is what is responsible for schools not reopening and teachers not readily available here and there. And we said, until the parents, they themselves, see that the security of their children is guaranteed, then schools will open normally, because we have put that decision in the hands of parents. What is wrong in that? What is wrong in a state of war to say that we will not pronounce a blanket reopening for schools, that if the parents at any time, and the teachers and the educational institutions, if they see that the schools and the safety and security is guaranteed, then they may open their doors and go to school. Those who don't want to stop the oppressor, stop the occupation forces, they want to blame those who have to defend themselves for their personal survival, or are as responsible for the state of insecurity. No, we are not. Those who attack the peaceful people of Southern Cameroon are responsible for the insecurity, the state of insecurity. And the state of insecurity is responsible for the lack of school return. And to say that we should make a blanket pronouncement that schools should reopen is nonsensical. It does not make sense. Instead of talking to the people who have built more than 320 camps, army camps in our since 2017 in our country, terrorizing villages, killing people, killing the innocent, declared war on us. Instead of telling them to declare unilateral ceasefire, to fall back, you come and tell us to say we should ask parents to send their children to school. After all, I'm sure the person speaking like that, his children and relatives are not amongst. Secondly, the argument that the United Nations will not grant us independence is fraught with ignorance and intellectual manipulation. We have not said we want the United Nations to come and grant us independence. Nobody has said so. Because, yes, the United Nations does not grant independence to countries. The people make their sovereign determination, and they constitute themselves as a sovereign nation, and then go to the United Nations and seek recognition and admission. That's it. But in all UN supervised territories during the colonial era, during the post-Second World War era, all UN trust territories were considered UN supervised territories. The UN prescribed the process through which they will attain independence. That doesn't mean the UN granted them independence. The UN prescribed a process through which they will attain independence. If the intellectually dishonest diplomatic staff from MINUSCA, if it says that is not true, it should write another memo again and put out there in the press. The UN prescribed a process for French Cameroon. They prescribed a process for British Cameroon. They prescribed a process for other places. Through what? Through resolutions of the United Nations. In the case of Southern Cameroon, which is particular to me, they first passed a resolution requiring the trust territories to prepare their trust administrators to prepare their trust territories for independence or self-government. Is that true or false? True. Then when our case came for the Southern Cameroon, they prescribed the following. Number one, that the people, the opinion of the people should be consulted on the issue of either attaining independence by joining Nigeria as the fourth region in Nigeria, or joining the French Cameroon in a federation of two states of equal status. Of course, the UN famously did not include the third option of total independence. You see, the UN does not decide independence, but they did prescribe the process that brought us here. They are the ones who prescribed two options and not three. The process of independence for us involved, number one, consulting the desires to determine the desire of the people, whether to go to the east or to go to the west, to Cameroon or to Nigeria. When that plebiscite held in 1961, I want to make sure again that we remember, they gave us a plebiscite, not a referendum. And don't be confused. The two are not the same and they are not interchangeable. You give a plebiscite to a sovereign person because it's a mere consultation of desire. What do you want to buy? I want to buy an aeroplane. Does it mean you have an aeroplane? No. When you have the determination that you need an aeroplane and not a ship, then they will tell you how to get an aeroplane. That's what you do with a sovereign person. They gave us a plebiscite for us to decide by popular consultation which way we want to go. Our fate was not sealed on that day. Our fate, the fate of the Southern Cameroon, was not sealed by a plebiscite. No, the plebiscite was just the first step in a process to determine the future of the Southern Cameroons under UK administration, and the first step towards the end of the trusteeship agreement. It was not the end, it was the beginning, the first step. After the plebiscite or results were received in the United Nations, even the note verbal or the informal agreements that were reached between Foncha and Ahijo in Douala, those were admitted. The Cameroon minister gave those notes to the British representative, at the United Nations, and who pleaded that these things be adopted as part of the proceedings. So the United Nations, in its wisdom, saw that. Now, that's why 10 days after the results, prescribed the process that needed to result to the effective end of the trusteeship agreement and the independence of the Southern Cameroons by joining. The conclusion of resolution, that's the purpose of resolution 1608. It was the prescription, the acknowledgement of what was done on the 11th of February, and the prescription of what needs to be done for the joining to take place, for the independence to be actualized, and for the trusteeship agreement to come to an end. That's why it was rightly entitled The Future of the British Southern Cameroons under the UK administration. Now, it is expected of the lawgiver that if you make the law, it should be implemented. And if it is not implemented, the lawgiver is the authority to look into the matter. Or was Resolution 1608 not meant to be implemented? The conclusion of that resolution says three parties, the UK, who was the trust administrator, the Republic of Cameroon, and the government of the Southern Cameroon should sit down and agree on the arrangement to actualize the desire of the people of Southern Cameroon, to put into a document the promises and the policies that were informally agreed upon before and during the plebiscite. That is called a treaty of union that will of necessity be ratified by the Parliament of La Republique and the Parliament of the Southern Cameroons, then presented to the United Nations and to the Secretariat of the United Nations and be documented. That is what United Nations Charter 102 prescribed that it should be done. Was that meeting held? Was there any treaty? Is there anything at the United Nations Secretariat as was directed by a UN resolution? So what is wrong when we call on the UN to see that their own resolution that was passed to be implemented was not implemented? And that This lapse led to many excesses that today have resulted to a war that is killing thousands of the southern Cameroons. How is it that we call for the attention of the United Nations to look into their own issue, because it is an UN issue? They originated this. They put this haphazardly together. They did not. This was not done. They did not do what they were supposed to do, or somebody did not do his job, and we are where we are today. Who do we call? When the state passed a law and somebody is not obeying that law, and you are in trouble because of that, who do you call to implement the law? Whose attention will you seek? Is it not the lawmaker, the lawgiver? The United Nations cannot just prescribe a process which is not followed, which ended up in annexation instead, and people are dying. And when we call their attention so that we can look into the root causes of this problem, you say we are calling the United Nations to grant us independence. That's intellectually dishonest, because that's not what we have asked for. That's not what we are asking for. We don't have representatives in the United Nations that the United Nations will vote for us. The United Nations is not our parliament of Ambazonia. It's not our House of Assembly. So they cannot make that decision. They are in no way do they represent the people of the Southern Cameroon to make such a sovereign determination as independent. But they prescribed a process. Was it followed? Was it followed? Let that intellectually dishonest diplomat from MINUSCA tell me if the process was followed. And if the process is not followed, if the case is closed. So, fellow Ambazonians, fellow ASAs, don't listen to people who are corrupt and talking from the force of corruption. They are dancing to the piper, because they are dancing the tune of their payer, the person that is paying them. We in the Southern Cameroons, including all our resistance, we are calling on the United Nations to look into its own. The fourth committee, the United Nations General Assembly, or the Security Council should look into their own resolution and then the implementation thereof, or the lack thereof. For that is at the root of what is happening in Ambazonia. That their so-called unity, creation of a new country between two countries did not happen. That instead of that, it was annexation. And that what is happening is annexation. Why is it that calling them to look into their own resolution is being misrepresented? That's manipulation. This is 2024. This is not 1961. Sorry. Good try, but you cannot succeed to manipulate us again.